Hello again, everybody. My name is Aaron Walther, and with me is my good friend, pal, and buddy, Luke Thompson Moritz, and this is a new episode of Comic DNA.
Thanks for making me blush.
That's what I do. So, this is the fourth episode, and today we are going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite comics of all time, simply called Blacksad. And Blacksad is a European comic. Luke, I believe this is the first European comic you've ever read, correct?
Yeah, I think this might be the first thing from Europe I've ever read.
Yeah, this definitely, it's funny that it's a European comic because everything about it is very, very American. Because it is, the entire comic is a film noir comic. And so, like I said, it takes place in 1950s America, and it's all just a bunch of tropes and pastiches in the film noir style. So I guess it's kind of interesting that it's a pretty famous European comic, as I understand it, but it's very, very American. And it didn't really get a really huge American release until Dark Horse put out the first 3 issues together in a big hardback. I guess the publisher that was previously publishing it in America went bankrupt, and they had some trouble with it. But
I was just about to ask, was it over here already by the time Dark Horse picked it up?
It was over here, but in a very
minor
way, yeah. But Dark Horse picked it up and has really been pushing it, and rightly so, because it's a beautiful comic. It's if you like film noir, and if you like talking animals and cats,
who doesn't?
Then this is the book for you.
Well, it's funny because you were saying how it's European, but it doesn't really feel very European, and maybe that has to do with some of the translation that happened and some of the whatever. But I noticed that too upon reading it. Like when I first watched Cowboy Bebop, I wouldn't have been able to tell it was a Japanese anime. There were so many tropes that were U.S. things that were just
it's a very American show, in the same way that Blacksad is a very American book. But it's also it's still European in its presentation. European comics, I should say, in its style. Like it doesn't look like an American comic book, and that's what's important.
That's definitely true.
So Blacksad is written by Juan Diaz Canales, and Juanjo Guarnido.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny because you have these 2 Spanish guys, writer and artist, both Spanish, both Spaniards, but it's a French comic. They sell it to the French market, and then it is in turn translated and published elsewhere. But it's definitely sold to the French market first. The French comic market is pretty big. They actually have a lot of comics in France. A lot of French comics. We might have to do some more of them in the future. But for now, we're going to talk about Blacksad. Where to even begin with Blacksad? As I said, it's a film noir, but it's also uniquely presented as a talking animals comic, which is also a very American comic. Like when you go back to Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, these are like, and
more recently the Mouse, Art Spiegelman.
Mouse. But again, like Mouse, it's really important to understand that Mickey Mouse was one of the earliest of American comics.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Through Disney's animation. But so it's not just like a staple of American style, but it's like the beginning of a lot of American style.
Easily one of the most recognizable, notable. Everyone knows Mickey Mouse.
And like talking animal comics in the style of Mickey Mouse have been around forever. I mean, you have all of the Disney stuff. In the last like 20 or 30 years now. Gosh, I mean, of course you have Ninja Turtles, which was huge in the 80s. Looney Tunes, and in the comics world, you have Usagi Yojimbo, which is one of my absolute favorite talking animals comics. And these are all of these comics are kind of done in a really cartoony style, to really separate the
detach it from reality kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So the anthropomorphic.
Yeah, anthropomorphic. Yeah.
You know, the anthropomorphic style is it meshes really easily with this cartoony style, kind of like Hello Kitty in Japan.
Right, and that was back in the day before everything had to be dark and gritty, and you know, which time and a place. But back then, it was easy to just go, oh hey, look, here's a mouse and a duck and a dog getting into some hijinks.
Well, and it's not just that, but like the less detailed of the cartooning, like of the character design,
right,
the easier it is to kind of gloss over the weirdness of an anthropomorphic being.
Right, you're not thinking,
you know what I mean? Like,
hey, why is this mouse wearing shorts?
Well, and like when you start combining like bone structure of animals and stuff like that, the more vague you are, the easier it is.
Which is something that's interesting about this book that will.
Exactly, and that's what makes Blacksad stand out, is that it's a very, very realistic take.
It's a pretty fine line between reality and illusion, kind of thing. Yeah.
I keep thinking there's got to be some like specific example that I can equate this to artistically, and I'm really kind of coming up blank as far as like the anthropomorphic style of all of the characters, but also the very like film noir style of the pacing and like the cinematic shots of all the panels.
Right.
It's all really stylish, to say the least.
It's hard to pinpoint because it really is so unique. And what we were talking about, it's funny that the animal nature of this, how everything is animals, isn't even really like required, because it does such a good job of like telling this narrative throughout each of the 3 books that like these would just work as strong noir stories, even if it wasn't like an animal thing. But
absolutely.
And the animal thing is just nice, it's just like it's a nice stylistic touch to it, and they touch on a bunch of issues about like race and inequality and stuff, but they're on an animal scale, which is kind of funny, I guess. In a weird way, it's funny. Well,
I think the anthropomorphic animals is very important to the story. Actually, that's a very the writer and the artist they use the animals very specifically. So the whole book is filled with visual metaphors. So you can read this story and you get all these noir tropes, and you can really follow along with it very easily, because all of the animals, all of the characters are an animal that represents their type of personality. So, for example, the main character, John Blacksad,
wow,
is a cat. He's a panther. So he's very sly. He's very keen. He's very cunning. And he's a hard-boiled detective, so he's kind of stubborn, and he's very smooth and suave. And
there's like muscle men that are like gorillas and rhinos.
Exactly.
And
the cops are all like dogs,
which is hilarious.
Very, very dutiful animals.
Yeah.
The boxer is a gorilla. The reporter is the ferret, and
the weasel.
Weasels and ferrets. And actually, I believe we were talking about this earlier, Luke. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he actually is a ferret.
Yes, I knew it.
Yeah, Blacksad calls him a ferret.
We'll get to that later, but I have funny stuff about that due to the fact that he's a ferret.
Yes. So, but yeah, no, I think the animals, it's very important to the storytelling, because you get this really rich visual landscape where you can, it's almost superficial, because you see all the characters and you can see what kind of animal they are, and you can totally size up the situation and kind of tell what type of character they are.
Right, like when I found out this guy was a ferret, when I found out Weekly was a ferret, just certain things that he was doing to other characters, I didn't even know what kind of animal he was. This was kind of confusing at first. And then when he started doing things, the first thing that in my head was like, I had a ferret once, and the first thing in my head was, yeah, my ferret used to take my shit all the time. Like, this has to be a ferret.
Yeah. And that's also used to really good effect, to like juxtapose your expectations for an animal. So it's all really well done. It's
kind of like a personification of that type of animal specifically. Like.
So one of the things I really like about these comics is that each issue is like a really, really complete standalone story, but each story is really full. Since these are European comics, each issue is about 50 pages. They don't conform, like 56 pages. Yeah. They don't conform to the typical American 22-page
Was this released
comic.
As issues, or were they just released as story?
They released as issues or as albums, I think, as they're called in France. So like it's like each complete issue came out, and they were like probably like a 60-page book or something like that, which I really like, because it's not as like the story doesn't feel as like dragged out or spread out across like months and months and months. The dreaded decompressed comic book storytelling that what got so popular about 10 years ago. But it's still like it's not just like a short story. Like, it's still a full, complete. It had
really
a
beginning, middle, end each.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's enough room for it all to just play out. So the book that we read, Luke and I read, was the Dark Horse book that collects the first 3 albums. Let's see. The first one is Somewhere Within the Shadows. The second one is Arctic Nation, and the third one is Red Soul. So let's talk about Somewhere Within the Shadows. Basically, what happens is Blacksad investigates the death of his ex-girlfriend, now movie star.
Right.
And all the clues lead to a rich. I believe he's a toad. Is the actual animal that he is, which that's.
Oh yes.
Because that's the whole thing, is that he's cold-blooded, and that's why
he's cold-blooded, and he's got that real sneaky smile.
Yeah, he's got the big eyes and the sneaky smile. But that's a big metaphor in like all of Blacksad's narration, and then it becomes a big visual metaphor, of course, because the toad is the wealthy businessman, and he's cold-blooded, which is why he is so easily able to become rich and succeed and step on people, and why he has no problem killing people, because he's got cold blood. And that's the great ending, the great line at the end when Blacksad confronts him, and Blacksad threatens to kill him, and the toad just smiles, and he says, "You won't kill me because you're not cold-blooded." And then, of course, what happens? Blacksad shoots him. Yeah, Blacksad kills him.
And he said, and I remember this line specifically, and I love this so much, where he says, "If it wasn't for that smile, I couldn't have done it."
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I mean, like,
he wouldn't have done it.
When you think of someone slimy, like, you kind of think of like a toad or a snake or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So, well, people that are so smug about like having you pinned down, and that's what
they think they have you in a corner.
And that the thing is, like, that's exactly how cats are. Cats do not want to be told what to do, and they do not respond to
authority.
Authority. Yeah, exactly.
They do things on their own will. They knock over what they want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, so yeah, like visually, the metaphor of all the animals coming into contact with each other, it just played so well, so perfectly into just these very perfunctory noir tropes, like all the stuff with the cops. The Doberman, I believe, is the police chief.
No, he's a German Shepherd.
He's a German Shepherd. Yeah, that's right, German Shepherd. Yeah, very, very good dog as a cop.
Yeah, and I mean, most of the time, police dogs are German Shepherds.
Exactly. So that's the whole scene where he arrests Blacksad and kind of tells him that they're dropping the case, and then he lets Blacksad out and basically is like, "I'm letting you out because I need you to do this, because the guy where after he's too rich, he's got too much influence, and the cops can't touch him, and so I'm going to let you go at it.
And if you you get him, I'll cover for you.
Yeah, we'll cover for you, which is what they do.
Yes.
So
that's another thing I have written down too. I have funny, yeah.
And they show they have the scene where they've got the two bodyguards that beat up Blacksad. Later on in the story, Blacksad beats the crap out of them in return, and it shows them sitting there with like a broken nose, and the rhino's got in like a neck brace.
They're getting questioned.
Yeah, they're getting questioned by the police because of their involvement in all the crimes.
Right. And then they go, "That's him. That's
the killer.
That's who killed him." And then they say, "Well, he's got an airtight alibi." And
oh my God,
I love that image.
That panel of the fox.
Smiling.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And he says, or he's like, "Can't you vouch for him?" And he says, "Yes."
The sly fox.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's...
that smile, like, he knows he's lying, and they know he's lying.
That's pretty much what happens in the first book, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said,
of what happened in that issue was just kind of superficial stuff, like nothing.
Well, like I said, I don't. This isn't meant to sound derogatory, but it's all pretty much like perfunctory film noir. If you've read a lot of Raymond Chandler, if you've seen a lot of these movies and read a lot of these books, everything in Blacksad will be very, very familiar to you. But the genius of it is how well it's all presented specifically with the talking animal style and the art, which I think we should talk more about. Specifically, everything is done in these very washed out watercolors. So again, like I said, it doesn't look anything like an American comic, which most American comics, obviously digital coloring is going to be the easiest and most effective, and digital coloring looks good. I'm not even saying it looks bad.
It can look very good, yeah.
Yeah, but
it also is very easy to make it look bad and not know that.
Yes.
It's very easy to get spoiled by it and just go, "Oh, okay, this looks fine." And people that have an eye for it will see it and go, that's not so great."
Yeah. But these Blacksad pages, it is watercolors.
Okay.
Good. It is watercolors, and it's so beautiful because it looks like a film style, but it doesn't look like film. It still looks like comics.
It looks like it's got a filter over it, sort of like a
yeah.
But
no. It is watercolors.
Yeah.
In the next book that contains the 4th volume, A Silent Hell, which we have not read, that Dark Horse put that story out by itself, and then there's a lot of backup material of the artists and the writer just talking about their methods and the stuff they do for the book, and the artist talks about a lot of the watercolors
behind
that he
the
does
scenes
for the
stuff.
book. Yeah. And it's all very interesting and very cool. But for now, we're talking about the first book. Yeah, book 1. But yes, stylistically, that's really where this book shines. And I mean, again, like I said, I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm not trying to talk down like the plot of the mystery, because it's just done so perfectly.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to start talking about specific stuff?
Is there anything else you want to talk about in the first story that you really liked?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lay it on me.
I mean, like we hit a few things, like we were saying, a lot of the animals that they picked specifically were very well done, like gorilla boxer, walrus walrus
producer, movie producer.
The mysterious figure being a snake, all of that stuff is so well done. I
really liked the lizard bar.
That's another scene too.
Yeah.
Where I believe a mongoose walks into the lizard bar or something, like some sort of.
Yeah, the mongoose is a different assassin, or one of the assassins working for the Toad.
Right.
And he sends or he's not a mongoose, he's a weasel.
Okay.
But the snake tried to assassinate John Blacksad, and he failed, and so the snake is also tied up into the blackmail with the Toad, so the Toad sends the weasel to kill the snake.
Right, he just says, go take care of it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And when he walks into the lizard bar,
yeah,
he's your kind isn't welcome around here. I think
Yeah,
you walked into
exactly.
the wrong hole.
Yep.
All those little like animal metaphors are so funny, and it's that
Well,
sort of trope could work.
It plays on natural American society so easily. I mean,
Right.
here you have racism and social status and social classes,
Which definitely come to play in the next book, but they start kind of getting you used to it in this book.
Yes, definitely.
Because it's really easy to just kind of make it just like a thing you can use, like do like a racist plot line thing, and just kind of it just seems kind of forced, I guess. But with this, it presents it to us in this format that we're not used to, with all these like with all this animosity between animals and stuff, and it's so neat.
Yeah, it's cool.
We've talked about the specific animal choices that were really great. The pacing, I noticed, even like 20 pages into the first book, I noticed that the pacing was just stellar. It was blowing my mind how how fast and easy I was able to just fly through this book, and everything was just sticking with me. And the past few stories, I really kind of had to dig deep to like stay focused and retain all the information. But with Blacksad, like we were saying, I can like sit there and recall specific instances from it. It might be out of order, but I can recall them, and that's neat. Part of it is the art being very memorable in those washed out watercolors, like you were talking about. So that was great.
One of the things, I didn't mean to cut you off,
no, you're good.
One of the things that's like it's a little subtle, you might not have realized it, but being a European comic, it's actually printed at a slightly bigger page than the standard American comic, it's a little wider, it's a little taller, but a lot wider than an American comic.
I don't think I noticed that because I read it digitally, and I zoomed in to read the text.
Right.
So I don't think I saw that.
If you're looking at the page in the book, you look at these kind of pages, and like a lot of these action pages, they'll have about 10 panels per page, which is a lot of panels. Like the standard American comic will have 4 to 6, between 4 and 6 panels per page, and and 6 is max. And when you get into a lot of these like decompressed comics, they don't have more than 4 because they want to have very cinematic panels and they want to have enough room to draw everything, which is fine. It's a stylistic choice, but when you look at something like Blacksad and you look at this action page, or like the page where the snake gets shot,
right?
And he's in Blacksad's apartment, and you have this huge action sequence of the snake getting shot in the back. He falls over. Blacksad grabs his gun. You see
because there's a third shooter.
There's a third shooter opening fire, hits the snake again, and then Blacksad wrestles the gun out of the snake's hand, rolls over, fires 3 shots, and hits the third shooter. This is all in one page, but it's told so fluidly and so succinctly and wordlessly, I might add. This is there's no dialogue.
I love pages with no dialogue like that when they're done right.
Exactly. But what this kind of action does really well is each panel like focuses on such a tight shot of a certain thing happening. The bullet hitting the snake, Blacksad grabbing the gun, Blacksad aiming the gun, the bullet hitting the third shooter. It's all like a bunch of tiny, tight action shots, and it flows across the page really effortless.
Without effort.
Without effort.
There we go.
Yes.
The couple things too, like it was like a couple specific instances, like as it introduces us to Blacksad in the beginning of this story, it introduces him as this like hardened detective,
Yeah, he's a classic film noir detective.
Right, and since I'm sort of new to film noir things, I'm still kind of fresh to this idea. It hasn't really burnt out on me yet. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I noticed, because I'm a big fan of the Fables comics also, is how similar Bigby, the main character of Fables, is to Blacksad.
Yeah.
From my understanding, Blacksad came out first. I looked at the dates earlier.
They would have been right around the same time. I think Fable came out, was it 2001, 2002?
I'm looking at Blacksad right now.
Blacksad was 2000 when the first issue came out in Europe.
Yes. And then Fables was 2002.
Yeah, so yeah, Blacksad came out first. But, the thing about that is both Bigby Wolf and John Blacksad, they're both characters in a certain archetype.
You're right. It's that hardened criminal detective thing.
Yeah, they're both playing on the same influences, the same archetype. So obviously they're gonna be very similar to each other,
right? And that was just a little thing that I noticed because I'm still,
Well, you just really recently have been reading Fables, right?
Right, reading and then playing The Wolf Among Us.
That's right, the game. Yeah.
Getting into the entire Fables mythos, and I like that. I like that archetype since I said I'm not used to it yet. And I like it when it's not deconstructed, but like put a unique spin on it like this, like where he's, John Blacksad's a cat.
Yes.
And it's funny that we were talking about the whole anthropomorphic thing. Like, these characters barely look like animals sometimes. Like with John Blacksad, he's, he doesn't really have a cat snout, like, all that much, like a little bit. But
he does. He looks like a panther.
Yeah, like he's still got like a human mouth, which is weird. But I like it because
that's anthropomorphic. Yeah,
right,
like he still smiles. Like
there's so many times that like I'll forget he's a cat because they do such a good job of like, they'll make it a thing for like a panel or two, but like it's not like every line is like, oh yeah, hey, don't forget I'm a cat.
Well, that's the beauty of comic art. I mean, this again, like I like to talk about stuff like this all the time, but like this is something that is so perfect for comics. This is the kind of thing that you really, really can only
perfect?
Get perfect.
Stop.
Okay, I'm sorry about that one. It's so perfect for comics, and conversely, you can get this effect in animation too, obviously, but it's something that really, really works in the art literature mix, whether it be comics or animation. But like a movie, like a live action movie, you'd have to have weird special effects, and it would always look off. And in a book, or it would look off or cheesy. And then in straight literature, you wouldn't. You would get the the literal literature metaphors, but you wouldn't get the visual clarity that the comic art gives you.
Right.
So again, that is why I think this is one of the greatest comics that has ever been written, drawn, and printed. I absolutely, it's on the top of my list. It's very, very inspiring to me.
There's a couple other just really specific lines that I don't want to forget about because we keep talking about how great the art is and everything, and I absolutely do not want to discredit the writer because he's stellar.
The dialogue is
right.
I mean, I understand that we're
plot and great pacing and everything. The dialogue is hilarious for one. Like
it is a funny book. Yeah,
he's got such like a wit to him, which is great.
Which again, that's classic film noir. He's the main character. He's witty. He's clever. He's tough.
Monologues to himself.
He talks to himself, but he's also kind of self-destructive and lonely, and he's got all these negative qualities, but he's also
got a heart of gold kind of
thing. A tough, smart, intelligent guy who's just dumb when he gets tangled up with dames.
Right. So a couple of the specific lines that I really liked on page 13, where he walks into his office and it shows how like kind of disorganized chaos it is in there. He says, "Sometimes when I walk into my office, I get the feeling that I'm walking among the ruins of a lost civilization. Not because of all the reigning disorder, but because it seems to be the remains of that civilized person I used to be." That was kind of a nice line, like showing that like he's kind of, it's that whole film noir, like
classic film noir.
Right, he's kind of messed up from everything that's been happening, so on and so forth. And it doesn't like, it doesn't waste time showing like this is why he's messed up. It just, lets us go. Lets us kind of imagine what happened, sort of thing. The other couple lines that I liked, there's a a little wordplay thing on page 25 where he says, "Just his bad luck that I wasn't some defenseless pussy."
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
little things that, like, I'm sitting there reading it, I'm entranced in this plot. I love the art, I love the animal choices, so on and so forth. That hits me, and I think it's funny, but I don't think it's like as funny as hard as I laughed.
Right. Yeah. It's a good line. Again, like, the dialogue would have worked just fine in like a regular, without the anthropomorphic animals, but
Right.
it adds an
like
extra
that second layer of comedy to it.
That's funny. He's a real toughie.
Right. Whenever he killed the rat after the snake broke into his apartment, it says, "It's also said that we've got something personal against rats."
Yeah.
That one's true, even more so when they make the mistake of slipping into your den with a gun. Mm-hmm. It's something about it's just so funny.
Well, I really like it because the dialogue, it's classic film noir monologue and dialogue, but it really ties into the animalistic nature of mankind by literally making them animals,
right,
and just kind of weaving this little bit of animal style, animal mentality into all the characters. Like when he talks about his den, in that line. And
then, whenever he was talking to the gorilla boxer in the beginning of the book, he's sitting there, talking to him, getting information about his girlfriend, and he's like, he cuts his punching bag open.
Yeah, slices it open with his claws.
And there's so many times that I'm about to forget that he's a cat. I'm just really close. And it's nothing even bad. I like that he's a cat. Mm-hmm. I almost forget about it because it's such a good plot. I don't notice it every now and again. And then he'll do something that reminds me he's a cat, and it just makes me laugh. He'll be talking, getting threatened by these mobsters, and it's all serious and film noir shots. And then, whenever they get in his face and try to threaten him, he, dips his head back into his shoulders like a cat would.
Yeah.
And, just funny little artistic things like that. On page 47, going back to more lines that I enjoyed, on page 47, he says, "A person rich in privilege and dirt poor in moral fiber. That said, who can call themselves moral these days?" Little, film noir stuff that I like. Like I was saying, I'm not super familiar with it yet.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's classic film noir.
Oh, I know. I just like it.
No, it's great. That's why it's used here, is because it's just so perfect.
Just really, really like how they designed this character, just every aspect of him.
Yeah, Blacksad is great. I really like. He's a great main character.
I really, really did not expect him to kill the Toad at all. I really expected it to be the Toad gets to him sort of thing, and he realizes, oh, I can't kill him. I can't do it.
No,
and
but
he just shoots him.
But that's film noir. Is that the heroes? They're not heroes.
I keep setting you up into this.
Yeah, they're anti-heroes. They're the guys that have to get their hands dirty and they live miserable lives because it's all very dark. That's literally what film noir means, dark film. So it's all a very pessimistic view of the world, specifically the post-war world of the 40s and 50s.
I didn't even know that this was that era until the next book. I just expected it to be a modern thing.
The Batman animated series, where it's just kind of stylized like that, but it's still set in the present day. Yeah.
And then that was pretty much the extent of the dialogue that I enjoyed. There was other things, but those were the ones that I felt needed, a little bit more recognition. And then I love the setup on the bear and the rhino with him, with the police chief saying that Blacksad had an alibi the whole time, and that little grin from that fox.
That panel with that fox is so perfect.
It really,
of him
really
just
is.
lying right through his smile, and it's great.
It is really stellar.
It's
worth noting too. I love the cover of this book a lot.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just the shot of his face and him
The
smoking
muzzle
a cigarette.
with the cigarette. And,
It seemed very pulp, very, noir.
Very film noir. Yeah, film noir.
I'm sorry. But it was great.
It's great.
The first book was really good. It is, by the time we hit the second book, I'm already comfortable with the characters and I'm used to everything.
Yeah, let's move on to the second album, Arctic Nation.
I like the name already.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
You want to hit me with the plot? I mean, don't give me the whole plot. Just give me a summary. What's this issue about?
The plot of this issue is Blacksad is hired to find a missing girl, and coincidentally gets tied up into a race war.
Yes.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, remember this is set in the 50s, so stylistically.
Is this whole book set in the 50s or just this section?
No, the whole book is set in the 50s.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. I don't think they give you a specific date. In fact, to be fair, I don't think the first album does not give a date. That's
why I thought it was modern.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I didn't even realize it was set in the 50s until I saw Nazis and no colors allowed. And
the second album very clearly is set in the 50s with its racial segregation, its civil rights movement, and white flight into the suburbs kind of a story.
Right.
And then the third album with the communism plot. It's obviously set in the 50s. But so for the second album, Arctic Nation, it's about the highly the high pressured racial segregation that was going on in the suburbs. So, like you said, Blacksad is hired to find a missing girl, and in kind of in the background of everything that's going on, or of this case,
there's this gigantic bubbling race war.
Yeah, so there's the KKK who in this book they're called the Arctic Nation, and they're represented by a bunch of
albino animals.
Well, not just albino animals, mostly polar animals. So, the main
Arctic fox,
fox, polar bear, snow leopard,
a white tiger.
Yeah, white tiger. Yep. Yeah. So basically white animals. And then you have the civil rights group. What are they called? The Black Claw.
The Black Claw representing the Black Panthers.
Yeah, they're like the Black Panthers. Although, the Black Panthers historically didn't come to a little bit later, but they still align. They still fit for this story.
I wish we would have saw a little bit more of the Black Claw, but it's okay. I think it was just my personal preference. The scene in the grocery store where they're trying to shake down.
That's a good scene.
That's a really good scene.
Yeah.
It got me hooked. I'm like, oh man, I really want to see more of these guys. They're these big scary animals.
The bull and the horse and the
There's
pit bull.
There's a bull, a horse, and a pit bull. Yeah, and it's oh man. But anyways, that's okay. I like that the book just throws it right into your face. There's a race war happening. There's a black vulture hanging from a noose.
Yes.
And then I think that's when it introduces Weekly, I believe, right? He mistakes John Blacksad for a reporter.
A reporter, correct.
Yeah. And, that I like Weekly a lot. I love his character.
Weekly is a great character, yeah.
Especially because, like I said, I had a ferret at one point or another, and I just kept seeing all these things of, what, if my ferret was a person, I could see him doing these things.
Yeah. That's kind of the running thing. I guess that's one of the things that makes this book so great is because among other things. But all of these characters, since they're anthropomorphic animals, you look at them and you're like, this is exactly how that animal would act. But at the same time, it's 100% how that animal would act. But at the same time, it is exactly how people would act. Certain types of people would act in that situation too.
A little reporter like that. First thing he's going to think is hey, who do you work for? I think he asked John, hey, who
he assumes he's a reporter and asks him which paper he's working for.
Right, so it's
but he's also he's a nosy little guy. The panel they introduce him, Blacksad's writing in his notebook, and Weekly's literally stretching his neck over his arms to read into the book.
They do a funny scene with that later too.
Yeah, completely invading his space.
Right. Another, yet again, great choice of animals for all of these different characters in this book, like the teacher being a deer, and so that was great. So yeah, I wrote down that if the little reporter is a ferret, in fact,
and
that's hilarious. Okay, yeah, because that's hilarious. There was the little scene on page 74 where he's in the drive-in trying to
watch the movie.
Well, he was waiting to try to talk to the missing girl's mom.
The doe.
Because as the deer noted, the missing girl's mom hadn't even reported it. You know, it was only the deer that was trying to find the girl, essentially. Mm-hmm. I thought this was just so funny because
it was the teacher of the school that hired Blacksad.
Right.
The mom hadn't filed a police report, so Blacksad goes to talk to the mom
and see why. You know, what's the deal with it? You know, if I'd be in the same boat, like why didn't you report your child missing? Mm-hmm. So, anyways,
well, I mean, it's again, it's perfect. It's a perfect harsh representation of 1950s America, like a harsh representation of the darkest parts of our history, and just how divided society was. And they kind of get into that story about how, you know, why would she report it to the white police? You know, she's
they do get into that, because it's like, you know, she's going to report it and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, why would she report a missing black child to the white police?
Right, it's just going to go under a case or a file of missing cases, or like uncompleted cases. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a little funny thing because throughout this story, it introduces Blacksad as this, like, you know, typical film noir, cocky ass, hardened detective. Yeah. It's so funny that after he talks to the mom and says, you know, hey, we'll meet at the end of your shift, she walks away and he stares in the mirror at her butt as she's
smiling at her.
And he just smiles. It was, you know, it's because you were saying he's like got that lonely nature to him.
He's
like
a predator too.
Yeah, he still has the time. Yeah, he is a predator. Yeah, he still has the time to appreciate a nice booty.
Yes.
Oh, another scene that I forgot to mention. I believe that whenever he first encounters the Arctic. What is it? The Arctic
Nation.
Arctic Nation, okay.
Yeah.
When he encounters the Arctic Nation, I believe in the diner, when he's eating with Weekly. Another funny thing, when Weekly stretches his neck out to try to reach the milkshake. Little funny artistic thing.
Yeah, he's like too short to reach this huge shake in front of him.
Oh, and then he says, you know, hey, do you want to drink this? He goes, no, I don't like milk.
Yeah.
Whenever they go, hey, don't you see you're not welcome in here, to Blacksad, he points to his little mouth patch and goes, what, muzzle. This isn't enough?
And that's really clever, but that's also, again, this is a really interesting visual metaphor of how to show that Blacksad is essentially he can be treated as a mixed race person, because he's a black panther he's a black cat with a white muzzle, which means he's both black and white. So he's
They even note that later in the convenience store scene. Yeah.
So when he meets all the Arctic Nation, they don't like him because he's black. He's not white. And then later, they threaten to beat him up, and of course he beats up all the tiny little snow leopard. That's a good scene. But then later when the Black Claw confront him, or when he confronts them, they're upset that he's got that little bit of white in him.
They even call him brother. Yeah. You know, they're like, what happened to your muzzle, brother?
Yeah, like he's almost black, but he's not black enough.
Right.
Which, again, you know, that is an issue that you know, people have to deal with. And that's
stronger of an issue back then, but it's still a thing, you know.
And that's even a running theme for this story, is the idea of a mixed race character, because that of course ends up being like the answer to the big mystery, which you know, we won't go through every sordid detail of the mystery because it's really good,
and plus like if someone's watching this wanting to know what we think about the book and still wanting to read the book, the mystery is great.
Frankly, I don't have time to go through every plot twist.
I don't have time to go through how great every plot twist is.
Exactly. But a mixed race, that is a running theme for this story. So Blacksad ties into that really really clearly by himself being a mixed race character. And so that also makes him an outsider among outsiders, because he's a guy who's the Arctic Nation doesn't want him there because he's not white, and the Black Claw don't like him because he's not
completely black.
Completely black, exactly.
Right. It's worth noting too that in the first book, with the scene where the snake breaks into Blacksad's house and they have that really intense confrontation, they have another one of those in the convenience store when the Black Claw and him start throwing down.
Oh man, that scene is so good.
That scene had me so on edge. It was so great. And it's like I was saying, I wish we would have saw a little bit more of the Black Claw, specifically because just this one scene. Like, that's it. It threw this at us, and it went, hey, these guys are pretty intense.
Yeah.
Here, have this. And after it got done, I'm like, man, it's over already? Dang it.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see more of the Black Claw, but they really weren't a major part of the mystery.
It was mostly just you know, it was mostly Arctic Nation and
it was about the polar bear and all the
polar bear and the fox, Arctic fox.
The Arctic fox.
It's worth noting too that I loved Karip, the polar bear.
Yeah.
I really, really liked his character and everything about him.
I really liked that character. They did a really good job of making him like he's villainous, like he's a bad guy, but he's also villain. He's really sympathetic. Like you feel bad for him, even though you don't not that he necessarily like gets what he deserves, but like he's a bad guy, but in a way you kind of can see how he's also a victim of society.
Right, like it dives into like how him becoming this white supremacist was very gradual. He didn't start off, and that's when I felt really bad for him. Like I started off liking the character, and then when it revealed that it was very gradual into his white supremacy roots thing, I felt really bad. I'm like, he essentially was brainwashed,
Exactly, and I mean, like I don't want to give too much sympathy to him because like it still was. Like the plot is he used to have a black wife and they moved into the suburbs and he started cozying up with all the rich white people and they didn't like that he had a black wife, so he started kind of like slowly
disconnecting
himself from her, and he started becoming more of a racist and a white supremacist, and like you feel bad for him because you see him like devolving into this bad guy. Like he started off as a good guy. Like he was race didn't matter to him. He married a black, he had a black wife, and they loved each other genuinely. Like they honestly loved each other. And then he kind of becomes this bad guy. But at the same time, it's still all his own fault for being this social climbing. Yeah, he didn't have to be a power hungry social climbing asshole to cozy up with all the white people, but he did. And it's tragic. It is presented as a tragedy. He's still a bad guy, but it's tragic.
The other thing that I want to note that is spoiler free, the scene of the magpie was very heart wrenching. It was very, 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 very well done. I don't know if I said enough varies. It was very well done. They did such a good job of like introducing us to this character for a small handful of pages of this little blind magpie, this old magpie that just is kind of in the background. He's just kind of behind the scenes, and then when his big climax happens, it's like, dang, like that's touching. It's very nice.
Yeah.
It's worth noting too that I wholeheartedly believe this is the best episode of the book. Or the best
issue
album
of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
in my opinion.
It's hard for me to pick, but
they're all three very strong.
They're all really good, really strong, but I mean, this one is really good.
I mean, it just throws you right into the heat of things, has a stellar beginning, middle, end, a great climax. Everything feels full circle. You don't really have any unanswered questions.
Well, this one, like, the mystery is really well done, and it's kind of...
The plot twist is insane.
Without giving like a whole lot away, it's got a what I would call a Chinatown style of plot twist. And I assume, Luke, you haven't seen the movie Chinatown.
No.
No, that's a classic film film noir. Well, kind of post film noir because it was
blah blah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. That is a classic film noir film. That if you're into this kind of thing, you should see the movie Chinatown. And this album kind of plays a lot with that style of mystery. So it's really well done. It throws you a lot of twists and turns, a lot of curveballs, and it's hard to kind of like.
I was legitimately upset when it was done.
Yeah, it's hard to like pick the bad guy like when you're reading it. Like it's because honestly, this is the kind of mystery where there's a couple of bad guys, but
and it's like you don't know who is.
Yeah, you don't know who's the. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that issue was stellar.
Yeah,
oh my goodness,
it's really good.
I think we pretty much hit everything for that issue. Everything spoiler free, rather. I'm trying really hard to not spoil anything for that episode, or I tried really hard.
Yeah.
Because part of the charm of that is the mystery and the plot twist and the, all the things that are revealed to the reader. Yeah. There's a lot of things, too, of Blacksad, like, him stumbling upon these new mysteries and, in this issue. And it was interesting. Mm-hmm. It was so well done. So, my favorite issue of the book, personally, book 3.
Yeah, book 3.
You want to hit book 3 now?
Red Soul.
All right. So,
so why did you hate this album so much, Luke? Why did you hate Red Soul?
I didn't.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
What? I was like, I didn't. No. What are you talking about?
Is it because you're a communist? Answer the question.
I don't hate book 3. I don't hate album 3. I love album 3.
All right.
I was just confused at the ending. So we'll get there. Why did you think I hated it?
Because you said the Arctic Nation was your favorite, so this one must not have been good enough.
No, Arctic Nation was just unbelievably good.
What are you a communist sympathizer? Is that why you?
No, I'm actually a white supremacist.
Oh.
Didn't you know? So anyways.
Okay, so Red Soul.
Jokes aside, Red Soul starts very strong. I loved all the little Lucky Rabbit symbolism in the beginning of this book.
Yes.
Yeah, so I believe the plot of this book is... trying to think of how to say it spoiler-free. Blacksad ends up as a bodyguard in Vegas due to some events from the second book, which
this actually is like
sort of a continuation of the second
book.
It's
a continuity. Yeah, the third book actually kind of follows the continuity of the second book. The first book really stands on its own as just kind of a basic detective story, introduce the character of Blacksad. Then the second book or the second issue kind of continues that, and then the third book really kind of follows the second issue. So
but the second one seemed disconnected from the first one, and then the third one was a continuation to a degree of the second book, mostly just from plot lines. It's
still a standalone, basically.
Right.
I mean, basically, Blacksad is in Las Vegas, and the reason he's in Las Vegas is because of commitments
due to the events of the second book.
Yeah, commitments from the second book, but it's all real standalone. Like it's still like its own.
Right. You could read it and still make sense. It was just like one or two lines that noted why he was in Vegas. So, anyways, he ends up as a bodyguard in the second book to try to make up some of his gambling debt.
Yes.
He has procured. And through the events of him being in Vegas, he stumbles across a presentation from an old friend of his, and he goes to see the old friend, and through that gets roped up into a communist government conspiracy.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this issue is basically about the Red Scare and, the Senator McCarthy witch hunt for communists in Hollywood. Or, in this case, it's in Vegas, but there's a lot of... let's see, because, who is the Dalmatian? He's
like a big...
he's a Hollywood guy, right?
He's a Hollywood guy. He's like this... he's like this rich, brainless guy, just this big, dumb guy.
Yeah.
He's dating I'm trying to remember her name. Alma. He's dating Alma, was she a cat? I believe.
Yeah, she is a cat.
Yeah. So the plot he just gets involved in this communist Red Scare manifesto thing, or not manifesto. He gets involved in this big communist plot line, this big Red Scare thing. Yeah, I did like this book a lot. I love owls as an animal, so it was really nice to see owls throughout this story.
Yeah.
Or throughout this issue. Like, I don't know, I just like seeing them drawn. They have this, like, really unique charm to them, and they always seemed very sophisticated in my mind. So seeing them actually drawn sophisticated and well-spoken and very, elegant was neat. I forgot to note throughout the rest of the book, I like the scenes where it's playing music and the song lyrics or the dialogue throughout those scenes.
Yes.
Very, very, very nice touch, but I specifically liked it a lot during this book whenever he finally hooks up with Alma for the first time, where it's like, it's singing the song, like, I think it's called Black Magic Love or something like that. The lyrics of that are very nice.
Yes.
It's a very nice touch to the scene that's happening. I initially was really confused on this issue whenever Lieber's assistant, I believe, the little owl,
yes,
accidentally gets murdered, and when Blacksad tells him, I think they were going after you. You might want to be careful for a while. I was initially really confused because there was a specific page where Lieber is walking to a church, and it's a homeless shelter now.
Yeah.
I was really initially confused because I thought, like, is Lieber homeless now or something? I must have accidentally skimmed past where they said Lieber's dad. They used to call him the minister.
Yes.
So then later in the book, it reveals that, it was his father's church, and seeing this church run down the way it was, it kind of hit Lieber all at once. That, like, the harsh reality hit him all at once. I love how much of a suave, debonair guy Blacksad is. How much of a on-it predator he is in this book.
Yeah, he's in, like, full, like, almost James Bond style in this story.
Which I kind of adored.
Oh, no, it works really well. He's the cool, tough bodyguard. He's got to play it suave, but he doesn't back down from a fight still.
Right. I mean, he's still kind of that, like, brash, jump in headfirst kind of guy, but he's also playing it very suave and, like, he's very comfortable with what he's doing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I love the scenes in this book, or this issue specifically, where he encountered his old boss, or his old friend, the police chief, the German Shepherd.
Yes.
I really, truly fell in love with that character. Like, for the little bit of time he was in the book, just something about him was just so likable, and, like, that he really did want to help. There was just a lot of time the higher-ups in his position stifled his attempts to help.
Yeah,
and you feel for him.
I really like that character. He's a good character to have.
He seemed like a really good,
the cop
parallel.
who genuinely wants to help people, and he's just hamstrung by the system.
And, like, he doesn't want to lose his job, so he can't
go
lose
his
behind
job.
the scenes.
Which,
that's
again,
why Blacksad's there.
That's a film noir trait. Good guys, the system can't be trusted, and the good guys in the system are completely powerless to it. So the cops can only do so much, and that's why you need private detectives and guys like Blacksad
to get their hands dirty,
who can get their hands dirty and do the job. Yeah. Film noir.
There was a neat little thing too. I'm sorry if you had more to say.
No, I didn't have more to say. Go on.
There was a little cute little thing too where he goes. I believe Blacksad goes to, like, a warehouse where he's trying to get something in a warehouse. I can't remember what it is specifically, but it was just a nice little thing of they had this whole book translated into English, but the monkey still talked German to him.
Yeah.
I don't know why I liked that so much. I think it was just because they even had a little translation on the bottom for it. Like, they could have easily just had the monkey talk in English and just be done with it. But it's just that nice little attention to detail where it's like, we need this character to talk in German just for this one specific panel. Just, I don't know. It's cute.
Yeah.
I love the line where he says to, my bag of tricks was in need of a restock. I think it's like he tried to pull the wool over these guys in the warehouse eye, saying he was some sort of FBI thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch it throughout the rest of the book how often he was using a fake name and like a fake career.
He uses fake IDs all the time. Yeah, like when he has the FBI ID.
Yeah, like I didn't catch it because he does it so like smooth and flawlessly. Whenever another little thing too, whenever the senator is interrogating Blacksad, whenever he's just like staring Blacksad down. And he starts, like, saying things that Blacksad, resonates to.
Yeah.
Blacksad's, like, sitting there staring at him. And you see that he's got a fish tie on. Like, from earlier, whenever Blacksad was talking to Lieber in the aquarium.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was a nice little attention to detail that... it made me wonder, like, what is this guy really up to, sort of thing,
Yeah, that's a really good
don't
page.
Say it. Don't even say it.
No, I wasn't gonna say film.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say film noir trope. Actually, I was gonna say that's a really good page because, again, talking about European comics, that's a 13-panel page with a lot of dialogue back and forth.
Yeah,
but it's all
dialogue.
It's all like, you get these nice extreme close-ups. Little focuses on their character facial expressions, and then all these tight panels of like their faces next to each other as they're talking. It's a real like it really kind of gets the interrogation, like it's almost claustrophobic, the whole page.
It is like I felt pretty like strangled listening to this guy talk to Blacksad. It was neat because I never really have that sort of an emotional reaction to a comic. Like it's just kind of like I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy, sort of thing. But, like, I felt pressured. Like, they did a really good job. And it was neat that he was a rooster.
Yeah.
Because roosters aren't, like, typically a really super intimidating animal, I guess. But whenever he is...
Well, they represent... Like roosters represent, like, power and authority.
Yeah.
Like, when you talk about, like, a single rooster on a farm, the rooster is, like... the single rooster among all the other hens, all the other chickens. So, So a rooster is a good, again, a good animal for an authoritative figure.
And I like, I like that. And, especially to a cat. Like, how's a rooster going to be intimidating to a cat?
Well, he's a bird.
Unless he's got the cat backed into a corner.
Exactly.
Like he did with Blacksad, yeah. I also particularly really liked the scene of Lieber and Blacksad talking in the aquarium. Where Lieber was explaining the chain of the food chain sort of thing about how the big fish eats these little fish from the school of fish, and when it's ready to die, it goes and lets itself be eaten by the school of fish, doing that whole like foreshadowing of I think I messed up.
Yeah,
I think everything that I've done has been for nothing. I just it seemed like he was scared of that whole nuclear fallout thing. With him developing the H-bomb, I think is what they were calling it.
Yes.
And he was just trying to promote his safety so he could continue to help people as he saw. Like, he thought he was helping people, and he ultimately feels like he didn't. And it's heartbreaking because I felt for Lieber the entire book.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man... I really like this guy. He's very charismatic. He truly does like being around Blacksad, and Blacksad likes being around him.
Yeah, he's a great character.
And then when they hit you with the revelation of who he really was, it's crazy that even after that, in my head, I still really feel bad for this guy.
Like, yeah, you don't want to believe it.
I don't want to believe it, and it's like I really feel like he really thought he was helping people. And, even after that revelation, I still couldn't believe that I wanted that guy to succeed, And, so that was great. After he did that whole charming scene to Alma earlier in this book, and how he talks about taking her to the honeymoon at Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
I did not piece it together that he was in jail for that.
Yeah.
That he was in jail for that long. I thought it was just like he was there for like a stint. Sort of thing, just a couple days.
So he missed the honeymoon, yeah.
And I feel so bad because he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And, like, I want Blacksad to win so bad, but they just keep making him lose, and it makes me feel so bad for him.
And that is classic film noir.
Fuck!
It's sad. The characters don't... Even when they win, they lose.
Yeah.
That's
film
noir.
That is a typical trait, even outside of film noir, but... I did want him to win really bad.
Yeah.
Just at one time. Because you could tell that they were kind of made for each other sort of thing. And it's like, I don't want to get too much into that because it's not really interesting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted that to happen. And seeing her there, standing with the paper.
Yeah, by herself.
Yeah, by herself, just sad, soaked. And she's just... And then when the paper drops, it shows the whole what happened with Lieber thing.
Yeah. Well, John Blacksad's even named in the article, like
because it says he sold him out.
Yeah,
and that was obviously not true.
Right.
But that mystery is also a very good plot twist of this book, so I won't spoil that either. Then we got to the ending, and this was what I was a little confused on. What exactly happened here in the end of this book?
What are you talking about?
When Blacksad gets the letter under his door, and he gets he gets a letter under his door, and it shows Lieber in like black and white photos and stuff.
Yes.
Not photos, but like black and white pictures. What's happening there?
That is a letter that Lieber sent to him.
Because for me, on my digital copy, it was really hard to read that text in those letters.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't make out a lot of what it said.
Well, yeah, the lettering is done in a script style to indicate that it's a handwritten letter,
right,
by Lieber,
which is very well done. It was hard for me to read it.
Okay, well, I mean, do you want me to read it to you?
No.
No. Okay. Basically,
nutshell it.
Basically,
explain like I'm 5.
Like you're 5. Okay. So this is a comic book, and I don't know how to make it any clearer than that.
This is a comic book. You're right.
Basically, it's him. He's just writing this, like, it's almost like a suicide note to Blacksad, just kind of explaining his motives and his guilt.
Because from my understanding, his death was faked, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
His death was faked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what I didn't catch, because I couldn't read that letter very well. I thought he really died. That's why I was confused.
Right. Yeah.
So he faked his death.
No, he faked his death, and the letter was from Lieber, just kind of trying to explain his motives. And although he says that it doesn't excuse his actions or his, he's still to blame for everything. Right.
He's just trying to explain why he did it.
He's just trying to explain, why, because he wanted to help people. That's
right.
Yeah.
And it definitely stresses that multiple times throughout this book, is no matter what this guy is or who he was, he did truly think he was helping people.
Basically, he just thanks Blacksad for sticking up for him, and just wants the nutshell of the letters. He wants Blacksad to know that he's happy.
Okay, and then he even notes that later is like he wasn't happy with the way things turned out. And
yeah, exactly. So like he's finally happy,
which he deserved it.
Yep.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a good character.
Little cutie pie owl.
A little.
And then from the other letter from Alma is basically her just saying like, I'm leaving.
Yep.
More or less. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
don't call it superstition.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, that's the end of that.
Also a very good ending.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 really good issues. I would almost go so far as to say that this is my favorite, like, neo-noir, post-film noir. Basically, anything that's film noir that's not actually film noir, because I define film noir as being actually made during the time period that it takes place, so the 40s and 50s, and anything that's done after that in the style is it's not true film noir, but it's just neo-noir or post-noir.
This guy, am I right?
Yeah, am I right? So this I would say is like definitely my favorite comic. I mean,
above and beyond.
I know
this is easily the best film, noir style comic that I've ever read.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we're talking about this. I believe, was it last weekend that Sin City 2 came out?
I guess.
I guess. I don't know. Why would we know? Because the film bombed.
It did.
All I know
really
is that it
bad.
bombed hard, and that's maybe that's a discussion for a different podcast. But
then we'll make another podcast called Comic DNA. Things we hate.
Things we hate
too.
Well, that's not fair because I don't want to give people the impression that I hate Frank Miller. But
nor do I want to give them people the impression that I'm going to say that I hate Sin City 2 because I haven't.
Because you haven't seen it, so how would you know?
But I also don't want to.
Yeah, the thing is, it's just it's funny because Sin City has become the go-to image of noir, and specifically Frank Miller. Frank Miller is the comic noir guy. Going back to his Daredevil comics, which are great comics.
Right.
Just in case anybody is questioning my loyalties, I absolutely adore Frank Miller's old Daredevil stuff. The guy likes film noir, and he definitely put it into his comics. I think Blacksad is better than everything Frank Miller has ever done.
Even the Daredevil?
Even the Daredevil. And I mean, I love his Daredevil, but Blacksad is so perfect.
I truly think outside of the animation realm, this might be one of the best film noir styled things that I've read in a while. It's hard to compare it to Bebop because it's like...
Bebop is a good comparison because Cowboy Bebop is another thing that takes a lot of tropes and style of film noir and kind of puts it in a different setting, puts a little twist on it.
Right.
Blacksad doesn't put as much of a twist on it as much as it just kind of puts it in that it blends it with the talking animals.
Yeah.
So it's all straight film noir setting, but in a cartoony talking animals way.
Because with Bebop, it's on a space scale.
Well, it's mixed with...
like, you're still getting, people chasing each other down and stuff, but it's in spaceships.
Well, and you're mixing it with westerns and science fiction, so there's a lot more going on there. But whereas Blacksad is pure film noir, and as far as pure film noir goes, I think Blacksad is the best.
I'd have to agree now that I've read it.
Yeah.
It's like most of the things we've read on this podcast, I've read them. I've either read them before or this is the first time I've read them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably just going to be that. I read it for the podcast. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. End of statement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going out to buy a physical copy of this soon, Blacksad.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to keep up with the series, and I'm going to send everyone I know towards this book.
Yeah, we will have to do the other albums for future podcasts because...
Cough, cough, assuming they're good.
Oh, I don't
doubt that.
I don't think that's a problem. Well, I've only read the fourth album, A Silent Hell. As far as
so you haven't read Amaretto?
As far as I know, Amarillo hasn't been released
Amarillo.
In America yet, or hasn't been translated to English.
Because it's recent.
Yeah, it came out. It's hard to say exactly, but maybe last year in France, and
right.
As far as I know, it hasn't been released.
So
but as soon
did
as
you like A Silent Hell?
What's that?
Did you like A Silent Hell?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Let's just leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that. Yeah, I liked it.
Because you said Silent Hell and, from our understanding, Amarillo are both standalone things too.
Yeah, well,
they're
much
just one story.
Yeah, like these albums, they're each a
Right.
single story. 50 some odd pages.
Were they released as a single story?
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
these were released as a single story too.
Okay, it's just this nice collection of
Exactly. The first one came out in 2000. Then 2003, 2006, 2005, something like that.
Right.
So they're released every couple of years, but like I said, their release in America was not very thorough
until Dark
Horse got a hold of it, and they put the first 3 volumes out and into a very nice hardback collection. I mean, that's another thing too. I know digital books are kind of like the wave of the future, but
they're convenient.
If you like having books on your bookshelf, this is a great book. It's a beautiful hardback edition.
I think it's a really good conversation starter too. If someone pops it open and goes, "Hey, what's the deal with this?" Okay, here we go.
Yeah, this is a cool book to just have on your coffee table. It's It's a cool book. I don't know what else you want me to tell you.
Well, I think everything else they wanted to hear, we already talked about.
Right.
So basically, in closing, this is a great book. It's so incredibly well stylized. The pacing's great. Mm-hmm. The animal things are cool. The little animal symbolism stuff.
Yeah.
Please read this book, or else.
Yeah, or else.
You have to read this book.
I think...
Or you don't...
I can't think of anybody that would really hate this book, other than people that really don't like film noir and really don't like talking animals. And that seems like such a specific thing. I don't know how many of those people out there
You're
going to
find that one guy that just goes, well, this book is the worst. He's going to give it a 0 out of 5-star review and go, film noir is stupid, and they made it stupider by adding talking animals. This book is stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much going to be the review. The one bad review of this book.
Well, the other thing, too, about this book, which I don't believe we said outright, I think we've implied it the way we were describing everything, but I think it's really important to note that this is a cool, sexy, violent book. Like it's not for kids. There is.
I mean, they show boobs.
Yeah, there is nudity in it. There is it's violent.
You see people with gun wounds through their head.
Yeah, people are getting shot. There's sexy dames.
I mean, the cover of the first book is a guy smoking a cigarette, so it's already kind of implying like, you might want to stay away from this if you're under 18.
Right. Yeah, it's not like it's not necessarily a book for kids, but it's also not. And again, like, I don't want to sound too condescending here, but it's not a book that is for adults the way a lot of American comic books are for adults, when in reality they're for adolescents. Like, this is truly an adult book. It doesn't talk down at all. It doesn't, like, it's sexy. There's nudity in it. There are sex scenes, but it's not exploitative the way, like, adolescent art is exploitative. Like, this is very well posed, very well shot.
Even the
designed.
sexy scenes and, like, sexy characters are still, like, in dresses or, they present themselves very well instead of, like, people's cleavage hanging out.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when it's important to understand, like, when you get into the greater discussion of, like, and this is an ongoing discussion among the comics community, the American comics community, of sexism in comics, and a lot of that, it's not necessarily that the subject is addressed, like sex. It's not that sex is addressed, or it's not that nudity is addressed. It goes deeper than that. It goes into, like, the character design and the posing of the characters and the way they're laid out on the page. That is what is offensive, as opposed to, like, a nude, a nude woman.
Situations like racy situations.
Yeah, a nude woman isn't as offensive as a very ridiculously posed woman in an outrageous getup that is, like, breaking the laws of physics. That
new 52 Starfire.
I'm not even going there. Okay, I'm not.
That's a good answer.
I'm not naming names. I'm not going there. The point is, Blacksad is truly, truly, truly a book that is just above all the regular crap. Like, this.
I truly think it's kind of above criticism, too. Like, there's not much to say.
It's almost above criticism. I mean, I am not going to pretend to be an unbiased reader. I'm very biased, and Blacksad is perfect, and I can't think of a negative thing that I would say about it.
The thing is, I am an unbiased reader,
no, you're
and
not.
It's pretty perfect. Well, like, I'm unbiased in the way of, like, I didn't know anything about this book except from your recommendation.
Right,
and
right.
Upon reading this, I truly can't think of a thing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. It's
like,
beautiful.
The one thing that I wanted to see more of was the Black Claw stuff, but very, very tiny, almost non-existent. Like, it didn't even matter. It was just they were pretty cool. It would have been cool to see, like, them one more time.
Yeah, they were cool. Yeah, but yeah. So I think that
wraps up.
That wraps up Blacksad.
I am officially Blacksad that we're not talking about it anymore.
Definitely. I recommend Blacksad to anybody who just enjoys the
Just
comics
recommend it to
medium.
everybody.
I recommend it to anybody for any reason except maybe kids if you don't want them to see
boobs.
like, well, not just boobs, but like, what is she, a deer? If you don't want them to get their like Bambi metaphors mixed up, like,
I guess I could see that. If you don't want your kids to like start looking up furry stuff,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you don't
want your kid to be a furry, which really I don't think anyone wants their kid to be a furry.
No, definitely not. And if you're afraid that that's a possibility, you might not want to give them any sort of gateway. I mean, I don't know how big of a gateway Blacksad could be, but there's.
I mean, we're really pulling at straws here to try to figure out something wrong with this.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to tell you, don't read this book if you think your kid will become a furry.
Right.
So
that's the only situation.
Just everyone read this book.
Everyone, yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's Blacksad, another great book. Next week, or next episode, I should say. We're not putting this out weekly. Next episode.
Good story.
Good story. Good thinking.
Yeah.
Next episode, we are going to be reading Weapon X by Barry Windsor Smith. Classic Wolverine Marvel comic. And I've got a lot to say about this comic. It was one of my first hugely influential comics, so I'm excited to read this and talk about it.
Is it because you got to see Wolverine naked?
There is a lot of naked Wolverine in this book. And
is that why you liked it so much?
Well, I won't say that's why I liked it, but it did affect me in ways.
in places.
But
anyways,
yeah.
It's going to be interesting to read that because I am very unexposed to Wolverine.
I don't
my
understand.
Exposure to Wolverine's very small.
How the hell in this day and age can somebody be unexposed to Wolverine? What have you never seen an X-Men movie? Have you never read an X-Men comic?
I'm exposed to Wolverine, but I'm not exposed to good Wolverine.
Well, okay. All right, that's fair enough. I don't want to start being too judgmental, but.
So, from my understanding, you're going to be judgmental. From my understanding, we're going to have a guest.
Yes,
for Weapon X.
I don't want to make any promises, but I'm going to try very, very hard to get my good buddy Alex Harner, who is my go-to X-Men guy. Whenever I need to talk about X-Men for 6 hours. I just call him up and we talk about X-Men for
Spoiler alert,
6
this
hours.
podcast will not be 6 hours.
I'm not making any promises.
I will prevent this podcast from being 6 hours.
Okay, excellent.
So
yeah.
Next episode, we're doing Weapon X. We will try to have a guest speaker, Aaron's friend, Alex, I believe is what you just said, yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's great.
So that's it. As always, check out www.newhavencomics.com. You can find comics that I've written and drawn on that website, as well as other updates about this podcast. And Luke?
I don't have any form of website because my YouTube channel is video games.
Well, what if people were interested in video games? What would they do?
If people are interested in video games, don't look at my YouTube channel because I'm terrible. No, my YouTube channel is www.youtube.com/LEAVANT. Levant. I haven't posted in a while. I'm going to start posting again very soon. If you would be interested in checking that out, please do. Hopefully we'll be good to go by the time this posts.
All right.
Websites and such.
I think so.